What page are we on, Ernie? At the very end.
Yeah.
Not at the very end. I think we have 2 more weeks. No, halachos related to the outdoors on Shabbos.
333.
No,
No,
No.
further.
no,
Where we are?
earlier.
No, we're at
Earlier?
299.
We did folding close on, we're on
99.
299, exactly.
Really?
Susie, could you pour me some calendar?
Yeah.
Here, I can do.
No, you can't, but
You can't do what?
this is heavy.
I poured my own, I can do it.
Hi, Chaim.
Hi, Ernie.
We're on page 299.
When it's ready, I will.
Thank you. Oh, you're waiting for the fizz?
If you don't want to wait. Drinking video.
It's okay.
I tell you what, we knocked out a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And series.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are we early? We're early. We're early, right?
We're early,
It's
yeah.
always,
Two-
Chaim's an early
2 minutes.
person, Saul's an early person. Late. It's good, isn't it?
Hi, George.
How are you, Ernie?
We're volume 19,
Yep.
page 299. I've ordered volume 20 for everybody. It's not going to cost anybody anything because they're shipping it to us just gratis. So
Oh,
they like our group. So I'll get it to you, George. Maybe we'll go out again. and I'll give it to you.
sounds great. I would love that.
I also have a certificate for you that I didn't bring
Yeah, you
to our
left it
dinner.
at
I
your
left it on
desk.
my desk. So
Don't
I-
worry. I'll get it from you. More
Yeah.
important is that I'm learning something.
That's a
Our
long.
friend
Yeah.
Ernie, our friend got operated.
Oh,
Remember he had that lung.
Me- City of Hope something?
It was positive, unfortunately, but he's okay.
Unbelievable.
But mazel. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay.
Let's learn.
Yeah, she sent me I was in contact with her because she had some questions
Yep. Yep.
urologically what was going on and she told me what was happening.
Bye.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi Mario. We are on
Abe.
Abe is there too, yeah. So we're on page 299. Volume 19. I've ordered volume 20. It doesn't cost anything. They're shipping it to us gratis. So our group is well recognized. They're just taking care of us.
When is it
Because
coming?
no, I think because we're sponsoring, we have people in the group sponsoring it, whatever. They're just shipping it to us. So I'll get it to everybody, once it arrives. Oh yeah, by the way, Rabbi Doron Podlashek, who's head of this, is giving a shiur in my home in about 3 weeks. We'll let everybody know.
February 6th.
He's coming for Bnei Akiva. We'll get
Oh.
everybody some information. Yeah, it's coming through Bnei Akiva. Okay, we're on watering plants. In the previous shiur, we learned about some of the halachos that apply to home maintenance. We talked about sweeping, mopping the floor, making the bed, folding our clothes. That was the last week. In this year, we begin moving to discuss the halachos that apply outside the house, mostly relating to plants. And we will discuss watering plants on Shabbos. The first 2 malachos of the 39 malachos involve activities related to agriculture and the soil. Plowing, or making any hole or alteration to the ground that prepares it for producing vegetation, is the av malacha of choresh, plowing. Actually planting grain or trees or flowers and anything that grows in the ground is the av malacha of zoreya, sowing. Watering any form of vegetation facilitates growth and softens the ground. According to Masechta Moed Katan, the Amoraim dispute whether weeding and watering seeds are toldos of Zoreya or Chul. The Gemara questions why these actions are not violations of both malachos simultaneously and offers no resolution to this difficulty. So we're at Moed Katan Beis. We're on page 299, Yaakov. It says Itmar, HaMenachesh. Menachesh is weeding. Ve'amashke mayim l'zroim b'Shabbos. Or you water plants, seeds. Rishumai Maisrinim Beit. Now, the Gemara takes it as a given that it's prohibited. Its question is, what hasra do you give? What warning do you give the person? Rabba Omer Mishum Choirish, plowing. Rav Yosef Omer Mishum Zoreya, because of planting seeds. Omer Rabba. Kavose Didi Mistavra. My opinion makes more sense. What does plowing do? It softens the ground. Hayami. Weeding and pouring water is merafui ara, is softening the ground. Rav Yosef. Kavasi didi mistavra. My logic saying that the malacha that you're violating here is Zoreya is because my darkoshul Zoreya, what's the point of putting seeds in the ground? Because you want flowers to grow. Hachanami here also, your act is providing growth of the plant. We're on 299, Walter. According to both of you, it's problematic. Why would you say it's only plowing and not zeret? It fulfills both. And the Rav Yosef Kasha Mishum Zeret and Mishum Choresh Lo comes out from this Gemara that weeding and watering the seeds seems to be violating both melachos. The Gemara continues. Maybe you'll tell me that whenever you have both of these violations, you can only violate one. V'amrav Kahana, Zomer v'tzarach le'etzim. If you prune branches from a tree, and normally you prune a tree to promote growth of the tree. But let's say you cut the branch off because you need the wood. So that's not the typical kavana that the malacha of zomer, which is pruning, is being referenced to in the Torah as being prohibited. The prohibition is not to cut a branch because you need the wood, but to cut a branch because you want more branches to grow. By Natiya is planting. And by cutting off a branch and causing more branches to grow through that action, you violated Noteya. Va'achas mishum kotzer. Kotzer is harvesting something because you need the item you're cutting. So you're chayav too. So you're havamina that if you do both malachas, you can never be chayav more than one, doesn't stand scrutiny, because they just brought us another example where if you do one act which accomplishes two things, natiya and kotzer, you're chayav both. So therefore, if you weed or water the ground, which have seeds in it, you accomplish both things. Choresh and Zoren, you should be chayav both. The Rambam, though, when he paskins in Hilcjos Shabbos, says, Azoreh kol shu chayav. Any amount of sowing, you're chayav. Hazomer sa'ilan k'dei sheyitzmach harei zemein zoreya. Therefore, if you prune by cutting back a branch of a tree in order for it to grow more, it's sort of like a zoreya. Watering plants or trees on Shabbos is a toldo of zoreya, and you're chayav with any amount. If you soak seeds of wheat or barley in water, the Or Zarua, who was a later Rishon after the Rambam, concurs with this ruling and adds that since the halacha is that watering is only a tolda of Zareya, pouring water over ground where nothing grows is permitted. According to Rav Yosef, you can pour water over ground that is just blank dirt without plants. Ularabba aser, l'chraya near the halacha karabba the Israel hilchos kavasad Rav Yosef, rak b'soda ininu mekza. There's normally we paskin like Rab against Rav Yosef, so we should prohibit. Miu near beina, it says the Orzaru ani amachaber the halacha Rav Yosef, the amashke lo ave ele mishum zoreya, that watering the ground is like a zoreya. Termin b'Yushalmi perek lagodol anotea mashke. Chodavar shu mavchil sapri chai mishum zoreya danik Rav Yosef. Umiu nira beinai ani amachaber the halacha Rav Yosef the kach kosav of Moshe Maimon, which is the Rambam. Hilka chashta shepirashnu shalocha Rav Yosef mutar lishpoch ma'am al gabi karka. You can pour water over ground that has no seeds in it. Shein zruah. Even if it's ground that normally is plowed, but right now doesn't have seeds in it, you can pour water over it. Other Rishonim, such as Sefer Yereim, understand the conclusion of the Gemara as being that water indeed violates both Chorish and Zoreya. Says the Sefer Yereim, B'tchilas moed kot namina mashke mayim lezarim chayiv mishum mai. When you irrigate seeds, what are you chayiv for? Or what do you warn them for? Rabba Amar mishum chorish, Rav Yosef mishum zoreya, umasik abayit chayiv mishum chorish, umishum zoreya. And the Sefer Yereim quotes Abaya's resolution that you're chayiv for both. The Sharat Tziyun writes that since many Rishonim in the Gra agree with the Sefer Yereim that watering is a violation of both Chorish and Zoreya, you should not follow the leniency of the Or Zarua, and you should refrain from pouring water on ground that is intended to be plowed, even if nothing is sown. Ayin Bor Zarua, Shadaitu Karambam Deino Chayv Rak Mishum Zoreya, that you're not chayv for two, you're not chayv for plowing, only for seeding. Because of Sham Delfi Zeh Bekarka Shen Zrua, the Er Zerua noted that based on the Rambam, if the chiv is only because of Zoreya, and there are no seeds in the ground, Avshomeres Lachrisha, even if the ground is standing in the future to be plowed, you could pour water. Achein das asmad, nagas mein moinik, maskonas Abaye. Abaye is the one who said that you're chayv for both Zoreya and Koitzer, and Chorish. V'chein mashma gam kein das Rokea. V'chein mashma gam kein das Agra bebiuro. Well, the Grop in his biur Agra says the same thing. Ufi zeh, yesh li zar gam b'karka shein zruah imrako meres l'chmisha. If you have ground, and the ground is occasionally plowed, even though there's no seeds there, you would not be allowed to pour water on it. It comes out from this that if it's ground that's never plowed, it has nothing to do with the field. This is ground. There would be the chura, the way I'm saying, there would be no chiyuv. If one wishes to eat a meal outside on Shabbos, right? You're having a picnic in your backyard on Shabbos. One must consider whether it will be possible to wash your hands, the tilas yadayim. We're assuming that you're going to do it on the ground, or to drink without violating the prohibition of watering. So first, let's see the footnote number 2. Many outside dirt areas today that do not have grass growing nearby are likely not defined as ground intended to be plowed, as no plowing or planting will be taking place there. if it would be plowed or prepared for planting at some point. No prohibition is violated if the ground will dry beforehand. This is relevant to the question of whether one may use a water fountain on Shabbos in a park, if the water may spill onto the ground in an area that has dirt but no grass. See Piskei Teshuvos that weeds do not have the status of grass in this context. So the Sefer HaTruma observes that this is often difficult, and he therefore discourages eating in a place where there is vegetation. The Sefer HaTruma is a Rishon. Omer ani, davar haregilas ki bekoshi yesh lechol b'Shabbos b'makom sheyesh asabim mechubad. He says that I think it would be very difficult to eat in a place that has grass. Kimo pardes, like a park. Shregilim lechol b'mosachama. People eat in an orchard or a meadow in the summer. The reason why he prohibits is because you're always going to bring water there, at least to wash your hands, olishtos to drink, or lechotz kelim, and you ended up shoifchi mayim ala sabim b'mezid. You're pouring water b'mezid on grass, b'shas rechitzas yadav, when you're washing your hands, v'shas sherotz olishtos v'tzomchin hasavim, and the grass grows al yidei kach. V'reinami psik reisha. It's something that is absolutely going to happen, even if it's a davar shein kavona. The b'shas shefik mayim ala savim, you have shash lo yitzmuchu yoser. It's going to grow more. Ki melach lachan, because you've waited, you've watered it. V'over v'shum mashke mayim lizroy. The Shulchan Aruch codifies this prohibition against washing one's hands over grass. The Ramah adds the corollary of the Sefer HaTruma, that it's preferable not to eat in a garden on Shabbos. Ha'ochlim beginot, asrim lito yedem al asabim shemashkim otam. You can't pour water over grass. Aval pi sheinam mechuvanim. Even though you're not intending to do it, it is psikreshahu, and it's you violating the malach of zoreya. Says the Ramah, Hagah, he says, better not to eat in the garden. If you're going to use water there. Because it's going to be very difficult to avoid that water isn't spilled there. Susie and I always eat outside, but we eat on a tiled floor. We eat among our garden there, but it's a tiled floor that our table is on. We're not eating on grass.
But some people do eat in the park. Like sometimes young people, not here, but in other countries, they'll get together and eat.
Susie says some people eat on Shabbos in a park.
They do like a potluck on a yontif.
They do a potluck on the yontif. Well, yontif's the same din as
I know.
Shabbos regarding this issue. The Sefer HaTruma continues by clarifying that this prohibition only applies to water or other liquids that help vegetation grow. More corrosive liquids such as urine or wine only damage vegetation, and therefore you don't have to avoid urinating or spilling wine over grass. Aval, says the Sefer HaTruma, shoy lahashtin mayim, you can urinate, ala zroim v'ala savim. Azim, urine is very fierce. The sorfiness it damages the grass. Sharei mavirin osam ala kesem, you use meraglayim to blot out a stain. Imkein chazakim vazimim, because so there's ammonia in it. There's other acidic material. You can pour wine. It's also strong. The if it burns. The Sefer Yereim writes that one must not urinate over grass or seeds. I was going to say, there's nitrogen, there's ammonia that's used as a fertilizer. I'm not so sure that it's not beneficial to the plants. scientifically. I mean, I'd have to investigate that. Well, you're saying in general, the state.
Yeah,
Okay, he's saying that Sefer Truma is that urine is harsh for the grass. I want to say that there's nitrogen in urine. Normally, nitrogen, plants fix nitrogen. They have the ability, we don't, but plants can fix nitrogen in carbon. That's how they grow. The acidity of the urine is bad for them. And the Sefer Yereim, maybe that's what he's worried about, that maybe urine is good. And that's what he's more machmir about urinating. The Shulchan Aruch was lenient. They're not people physically urinating on the ground. Everyone had a chamber pot. So they would dump it. So we're talking about them, they dumped it in their backyard. Maybe it was a garden. I mean, it could also be referring to urinating on it, but it's also pouring urine on it. The Shulchan Aruch says they don't cause growth. Despite the Shulchan Aruch's lenient ruling, the Magen Avraham writes it's appropriate to be stringent not to pour any liquid over grass. Oshar mashkim v'roy lazar af b'mashkim. He says any liquid. The Mishnah Berurah quotes the Magen Avraham, refers to the Eliyahu Rabbah, who writes that there is no reason to be stringent regarding wine. He also writes the name of the Prima Godim that honey water and beer certainly cause growth, and you would not be able to then pour it there. You should be careful of the mashkim with any liquid. You don't have to be worried about wine. Like sweetened water with honey. The sheikh or beer yeshbem mayim, there's water in. There's enough water that it would be problematic. The beer halacha, the Mishnah Berurah questions why liquids that do not cause growth may be poured over grass on Shabbos. Although the mlach of Zareh is clearly not involved, pouring them over grass seems to violate the mlach of Choresh, as all liquids soften the earth. Since the mlach is that Choresh is also violated when watering should be forbidden in case of liquids that do not cause growth as well. The Bir Halacha suggests that the damage which caused to the seeds outweigh any softening of the ground, such that the overall result is not considered an improvement to the ground. But he's not entirely satisfied. The smog in the Hagos Maminias wrote that pouring liquids on grass isn't enough to be worried about zoreya seeding, but you have to be worried about plowing. So I might cause it to be wine be okay. Any beverage that we say doesn't cause growth, and it seems that the poskin of how to pour on it, the Mishnah Berurah doesn't understand. We should be concerned about choresh. So it's softening the ground. So the Mishnah Berurah answers himself. That means if the watering helped the seeds, then they would have a problem with choresh. But if overall the seeds are going to be damaged, so the benefit that you get from the plowing process is subtracted, and you have a net negative, is really what the Mishnah Berurah is saying. De'ein misyofe hakarka ukein ze matzazikam k'mimar Mordechai avalu doichek v'tzorchir. He leaves it as he says it's a forced answer. That's what it means when it says it's a doichek answer. It's it's a kvetched answer. That it's a doichek. And when a posek says tzarchiyun, he leaves it as an unknown. He's not sure that it should be permitted.
Maybe we should back them. Urine or whatever it is, or his seeds versus something that's already grown.
Can you pass me that, Susie? Well, the seeds and the grass are going to be the same, because when you water seeds, it's going to help it grow. When you water grass, it's going to help it grow. I mean, it's the same. They're treating grasses the same as seeds. So the Bir Agra continues. That's the Mishnah Berurah, by pointing out that as it's known that urine can in fact be used as fertilizer. Hey, I was machavin to something. Urinating on the ground should certainly be considered a tolda of choresh. However, he concludes that nevertheless common practice is to be lenient. And there's also a proof in the Gemara that this is permitted. Vidad the B'Sefer Tiferet Yisrael, Kosov, amazing. You all know that Tiferet Yisrael is the commentary on Pirkei Avos. But he's not just the commentary on Pirkei Avos. He is one of the first modern thinkers that we're exposed to. Those of you who learn Pirkei Avos remember that the Tiferet Yisrael mentions Edward Jenner, the smallpox vaccination inventor. Now, Edward Jenner was in 1796, something about that. So the Tiferet Yisrael is about that time. He talks about the Chokhmas, he talks about Chokhmah of science. He mentions Edward Jenner, who had come up, he had seen that girls that milk cows, they would get this cowpox, which was a virus. They would get it on their hands. And he noticed that if they contracted smallpox was a killer. But the milkmaids that had been infected with cowpox, they had a less they didn't die, and they didn't get as sick. So they started vaccinating. The word vaka, George and Mario will tell us, means cow.
Mm-hmm.
Correct, Mario and George?
Yep.
Okay. So that's where the word vaccination comes in, because of this story I just said. But the Tiferet Yisrael comments on this in Pirkei Avos when it talks about Chokhmah Sagoyim and that kind of thing. So he mentions, they spell Jenner, Gimel, Ayin, Nun. So look at Tiferet Yisrael. Cause of the B'chokhmas economia. That's what the Bir Halacha says. It's really agriculture. But that in economics, they say that the scientists say that the urine is good for the ground. It's because of the nitrogen. By the way, Susie and I are watching a outstanding series called Victoria. Maybe some of you have seen it. I would highly recommend it. It's about Queen Victoria and Victorian life in England. There also, in the 1850s, there was a terrible cholera epidemic. And a Dr. John Snow identified that it came from spoiled water, because he went around plotting where the cases were, and it was all around one water pump. And when they got rid of that water pump, all the cholera went away. And it was before Louis Pasteur. It was before they knew about bacteria. They didn't know cholera was caused by a bacteria. But it was one of those things that began the process of bacteriology. Harold will remember some of this from Harold and I were bacteriology majors at UCLA. So some of this was taught to us. So says the Bir Agra, based on the Tiferet Yisrael, came Mezavel told us Choresh, who had come l'shoina. It's Choresh. However, lo nagu ha'olam lizar b'zeklal. He says we don't see that the minhag, the custom, was for people to be concerned about this. It got me Shabbos in Masechta Shabbos Mulash Lokid Varav. It's like him. The halach yefshal ligdoilim beloktanim. There it's talking about going to the bathroom. Points out you can't have number 2 without passing number 1. If there it says it's permitted to go to the bathroom number 2 on a plowed field. Now, he says you can't have a bowel movement without having some urine come out. That's correct, because as you relax your sphincter, they're all controlled by the same S1 sacral nerve. So when one is relaxed, both are relaxed. And if it was a problem to pour urine on a field, they would have prohibited you to go to the bathroom on a field, because they knew that urine automatically comes out. That's the Bir Agra. That's the Bir Halacha proving. So, but there doesn't have a problem over there. Okay. And therefore, Rav Ovadia Yosef rules that urinating on grass or seeds is permitted. The Shmira Shabbos Kilchasa gives us a summary of watering plants. He says, Asur la'ashkos kol tzomea. You're not allowed to irrigate anything that's growing. Afilu tzemach sheba'otzit she'eino nokuv. Even a potted plant that you have in your house that doesn't have a hole in the bottom of it, or let's say the potted plant is on the ground, but it doesn't have a hole in it, and you might think, oh, you could be lenient because it's not connected to the ground, right? There's a difference between an otzitz nakuv and an otzitz she'eino nakuv, right? If a pot has a hole in the ground, it's as if it's connected to the ground. But he says even a pot without a hole, you can't irrigate. You certainly cannot dump water on ground that had been seeded. Or any piece of land that is waiting to be plowed or seeded. Even though right now there is nothing growing there. You should have a practice of not eating in your garden. If you're going to use liquids when you eat, and it's the type of beverage that's going to help growth. Somebody who's going to eat in the garden. Let's say you built your sukkah on grass. If you're going to do netilat yadayim, you should pour the water into a kli, not on the ground. Don't wash dishes there. Unless you're in a dish, in a large rubber, what do you call those things? When you wash dishes, a rubber, whatever those rubber things are called. Huh? What are those things called? So that you haven't used to make in your
Dishpan.
a dishpan. A dishpan? A dishpan. No. There's a name for it.
Like a dish liner.
A big,
Rubbermaid.
our mothers wash dishes. They used to put it in the sink.
It's a bit.
A bit. Okay. Lo yishtosh ram kelen ki mitoch kara.
It's called the shiksa.
Remember, this is being recorded.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
recorded. It's
Yeah,
a
Pete-
receptacle. It's a receptacle.
Yeah. Yakpid shelo lishpoch shiurei hakos ala karka. Let's say you have liquid left in the cup, don't dump it on the ground. Nitasu megeshem beklish nimtza begina. Let's say after a rain and water is accumulated into some kli that's sitting in your garden, don't turn it over and dump it on Shabbos. He says you can urinate on the grass. You cannot defecate in a field that's ready to be plowed. You shouldn't spit on vegetation. Kior. You have a sink, and water that flows out of the sink, it ends up, I guess, out in a waste pipe, and it lands on a ground that is got seeds on it. So the question is, can you wash your hands in that sink? He says, "Mutar li to yadam l'tochel b'Shabbos." V'chein mutar lishpoch bo mayim l'chol tzorach achar, or to pour any water down that sink. Vein chosheshim lashkias hazroim shenigremes l'yidei mayim elu. You don't have to be worried. He notices the word nigremes, that's caused secondarily. As long as imamnam ein kavanato lashkosam achshav, he doesn't have direct kavanah to irrigate them. Kiven shenasa yedei koach, v'zegrama yesh lahakim. It's a grama action. It's indirect, right? It's not directly pouring, it's an indirect. It ends up there, and it's intentional, even though it's a psik reisha, because it's indirect and unintentional, it's okay. Barzanim tzot begina. Let's say you have faucets that are in your garden. And if you open up the faucet, you're going to drink from it, it will pour on the ground. There's no pipe, it flows directly from the faucet to the ground. You shouldn't drink from it. If any remnant water pours to a place where there's no growth, could go like on concrete. If the faucet you're drinking from, Susie, my computer's going to go dead. Bring me my briefcase, please. Bring it here. 1 second, everybody. Yes, you please plug this in. Yeah. Thank you. You can plug it. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, plug it in with the TV. Is it plugged in? Susie? Yeah,
It's all tied up.
I don't think it's plugged in.
There. It is too, it's all twisted. Just untwist it first.
Why would twisting make it effective?
Wouldn't.
Okay. Did.
It did.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Mutter livtoch mi matarot hashka'a v'taftefut mi bod yom. If you turn on your sprinklers before Shabbos and you leave them running on Shabbos, ulashir potchot b'Shabbos k'nei lashkot tzadeo sagina v'lesogan mutter gam b'shechashecha. You can turn it off after dark, even on Shabbos. So if you turned it on before and it continues running, that's okay. And then you can turn it off on Shabbos. Page 307.
I don't get that. You can turn it off even on Shabbos after it
What's
gets
the
dark?
malacha? What malacha are you violating by turning it off? By shutting the flow.
Oh, is it kotzer? You're stopping the improvement. I don't know.
It's electric, Ernie. They're electric nowadays.
No. We're talking about, let's say you opened up your,
Oh, the
your
hose.
hose.
Yeah, okay.
Let's say your hose. But
Yeah,
even
it's
the sprinklers, if it's electric, obviously you can't do it.
yeah, but it's like opening a faucet and closing it. What's wrong with closing a faucet?
Right.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. 307. We lost Walter all of a sudden as he was talking to us.
Yeah, he went to turn off the
I went to turn off the faucet.
No, we lost George. I'm sorry. Okay. Uprooting grass. The malach of kotzer is another one of the malachos related to agricultural activities. Any case of detaching vegetation from the ground, you have violated the malach of kotzer. The Rambam introduces this malacha in the following way. HaKotzer kigrogras chayv. He gives you a shear. A grogras is a dried fig. So if you tore away grass, the amount of a dried fig, you'd be chayiv if you did it b'shogeg to bring a korban chatas. If you did it b'mezid, you'd be chayiv skila if you were given a warning by Eidim. Tolesh told us kotzer, right? Tolesh, plucking, reaping, plucking, is a tolda of kotzer. Remember, a tolda has the same din as a nav. If you do a tolda and a nav at the same time, you might only be chayiv one. But the tolda has the same chiyuv as a nav. Although harvesting crops on Shabbos is not a relevant issue for most of us today, unless you live on kibbutz, there are a number of more common activities that do raise questions with respect to kotzer on Shabbat. The Gemara Masechet Eruvin discusses whether even walking on grass should be forbidden on Shabbos. The Gemara initially prohibits this due to the likelihood that grass will be uprooted. The Gemara then clarifies that the potential concern only applies in certain circumstances. The Gemara concludes that since the halacha is in accordance with Rab Shimon, which Rab Shimon? Rab Shimon and Rab Yehuda that are arguing throughout Masechet Shabbos on Dover Shein Miskavein. Rab Yehuda says if you do something without kavon, it's still usher. According to Rab Shimon, Dover Shein Miskavein mutter. If you remember dragging a bench from one corner to another, and by dragging a bench, you're going to make a ditch in the ground. But your kavana is to move the table from here to there, not to make the ditch. So according to Rab Shimon, it's a dover mutter. Now, we have to factor in psik resha, that if the thing's going to automatically occur, then even Rab Shimon asers, unless it's lo nichale or lo ichbesle. He doesn't want it to occur. He doesn't like it. So, since we hold like Rab Shimon, who permits actions which may unintentionally cause malacha, davar shein miskavein, walking on grass is permitted under all circumstances. Because when you're walking on grass, your kavanah is not to uproot the grass. Your kavanah is to walk from point A to point B. Rabbi Rabba Ravasi. So there was an opinion you couldn't walk on the grass. You're sitting with your feet. Tani chada. So they learned in a Mishnah that you're permitted to walk on grass. V'tani dechaser. Then there's another brayso says it's prohibited. Loy kasha. Ha belachim ha b'yaveshim. If the grass is wet, where walking on it might uproot it, that's when it says you're not allowed to. If it's dry, then there's no more prohibition. Says the Gemara. If you want, I'll tell you both braises as when it's wet. Like kasha can be mosachama. It depends what season it's in. In the summer, there may be seeds there, and it could be dislodged. Can be mosak shamim when you have to worry about it. In both cases, we're talking about the summer. One case is he's wearing his shoes, and that's not a problem. If he's not wearing his shoes, the grass will be caught up in your toes and you might pull them out. Both cases, the Bryce and the Mishnah we talked about, he's wearing his shoes. Like kasha. Had the isle ukzi, had the lesle ukzi. Some of these shoes had spikes, like us golfers. So if you had a spike, that would be problematic because it would be more likely that you would uproot it. We're both cases are talking about the shoes that had spikes. Hadi isle sharcha, hadi lesle sharcha. It depends of what the size of the grass is. If the grass is long, then you might uproot it. If it's shortly cut, then it's less of a problem. What's the maskon in the Gemara? Va'idna today, the kaimel and Reb Shimon kulashari. Since we paskin like Reb Shimon, when all is said and done, it's a davar shein miskav and it's all permitted, no matter what. And the Shulchan Aruch codifies this Gemara. Mutter leilach agabi asavim. You can walk on grass, bein lachim, bein yeveshim, whether it's wet, whether it's dry. Kivin she'enu miskavin litlosh, because the person walking has no kavanah to uproot. The Mishnah Berurah writes that certain activities, such as running through tall grass, will inevitably uproot grass and be prohibited. If the grass is very long, don't run there. It's a psik resha that it's obviously going to happen. Maybe walking quickly, you'd have to be a problem. Aruch HaShulchan argues that even running through long grass is permitted, as it doesn't inevitably uproot grass. He says, "Mutar leilach agab asavim b'Shabbos deloy gozu rak be'ilah." The gzera was by trees, used being mishtamish with a tree. We're not concerned that through his walking he's going to uproot a grass. It's not for sure he's going to do it. If it happened, he has no kavanah. It makes no difference whether the grass is long, whether you're walking with a shoe, or barefoot, or whether he's running. He saw Misha Machmer B'Hoylech B'Merutza B'Chasavim G'dolim. He saw, it could be referring to the Mishnah Berurah. Remember, the Mishnah Berurah died in 1933. The Aruch HaShulchan died, I think, 1910, sometime like that. So he died before the Mishnah, but they were contemporaries. And the Mishnah Berurah, it was like serialized. It came out, it didn't all come out at one time. And I think it came out earlier. And the Aruch HaShulchan must have seen the Mishnah Berurah, because he says here, I think he's referring to the Mishnah Berurah, Mishnah Machmer. He says we should not create new Isurim. So he says the concept of psik resha isn't in every situation.
The first release, the first volume, the Mishnah Berurah came out, I remember it was in 1896, 1898, but it was in the 19th century, before the Aruch HaShulchan.
right before the Aruch HaShulchan died. So in Chanami. So that's the Aruch HaShulchan was aware of some of the psakim of the Mishnah Berurah. He says, look at the footnote. What can explain the machlokas between the Mishnah Berurah and the Aruch HaShulchan as relating to whether a series of similar actions that will certainly cause a malacha to be performed at some point qualifies as a psikration. The Mishnah Berurah holds that this constitutes psikration since at least one of the blades of grass will be uprooted, while the Aruch HaShulchan contends that it does not, since each act of moving one's legs while running does not necessarily cause any grass to be uprooted. Rav Shlomo Zalman suggests that perhaps the Mishnah Berurah as well believes that a psikration does not include such cases. He suggests a different explanation from the Mishnah Berurah here, and he gives us a source for another to go more deep in that. But the Shmir Shabbos rules stringently in accordance with the Mishnah Berurah and adds that one should also not walk on dry thorns that are attached to the ground. He says, Mutter lalechas lagabi desha, you can walk on grass. Aval ein lidroch lagabi kotzim yiveshim, don't step on dry thorns. Amachubar lakarka. Then he adds the Mishnah Berurah's point, Im isvei adesha gvohim, if the grass is tall, yelech la'at v'lo ma'ir, you should walk slowly. Vada shelo yarut sham, don't run. Shema yitlosh min ha'mechubar. Let's do one more unit. Smelling fruit and flowers. Chazal prohibited a number of activities that of concern that one may come to violate kotzer by detaching produce or parts of a tree from the ground. One of these decrees relates to smelling fruit that is still attached to the ground, as smelling may lead to picking the fruit. The Gemara Masechta Sukkah explains that this concern only applies to edible fruit, not to pleasant smelling inedible plants. So you can smell your roses. Omer Rabba, hadas b'mechubar. Hadas is myrtle. Mutar l'aricha, you can take a smell of that. But etrog b'mechubar, asur l'aricha, you can't smell an etrog that's growing. My next door neighbor, when we lived in Alta Vista, was Rabbi Jack Simcha Cohn, and he had a magnificent etrog tree that he had planted right in front of his house, with huge estrogim that would grow on it. So my taima, hadas delariach koi. The whole point of a myrtle branch is to smell it. Isharita le la'asi lemigse. If you're permitted to smell it, you're not going to come to cut it. But etrog delachila koi, the etrog is to eat. Ishayale, if you're permitted to smell it, asi lemigse, you're going to come to cut it. And the Shulchan Aruch codifies this. Hadas mechubar mutar l'riach po, aval etrog v'tapuach. But an etrog or an apple v'chol davar rei l'achila, asur l'riach bo mechubar shema yikotz oto l'achla. You can't smell it on Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah reports that the prohibition against picking fruit on Shabbos was often violated in his time, and he therefore urges the appointments of officials to supervise public gardens containing fruit trees. Why don't you say that he might take a bite of it? But that's tlisha too. In the time of the Mishnah Berurah, he says, there were people making mistakes, going to the gardens on Shabbos and Yontif and picking fruit and eating them. You can't eat of the fruit, and certainly you can't polish it, can't pluck it. He says that the Jewish, I think he's referring to the Jewish community, should appoint sort of policemen to patrol the gardens to make sure that people don't do it. Now, for example, I'm thinking about in Antwerp, where I visited my cousin, there's a place called Cholland Park. There's one park that the whole community goes to. Meaning, we're talking about how do you use it? Must be that in the Jewish community there was like one place that they all went to, and it was you could appoint somebody to make sure that the people aren't doing it. Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa writes also that smelling flowers is permitted. Mutar liach b'prachim, you can smell your roses kashem b'chumer lekarka. V'im givolam urach, if their stalks are flexible, the gamein darko liskashos, and they never become stiff, af mutar l'nanem ana va'ana. You can move them back and forth. As long as you have no kavana to pull it out. You can't smell fruit that are connected to the ground. You may come to pluck it and eat it. Okay, we'll stop here 3:12, and then we'll finish, God willing, next week, and we'll start in 2 weeks. Hopefully, I'll let everybody know if you can to come over to get the volume 20s. Any comments, questions here I wrote about anything we learned today? Okay, I think it was pretty self-explanatory. Have a good weekend.
Go ahead.
Well.